Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a Spider-Man can. Hey guys, Nick here from Just Few Studios, and welcome back to another movie review. Today we have a movie review for Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, this movie, anticipation-wise, has done a lot to me. It has made me both extremely excited from Civil War all the way up to going to see the movie, yet also very skeptical. Because the trailers, there were moments where they showed some things they probably shouldn't have showed, and some choices that I kind of questioned, but we're gonna just jump right into this review, and I'll tell you the good, the bad, and then finally, the review. Now, this review is entirely going to be spoiler-free, so if you've not seen the movie, don't worry about it. If you want to hear my thoughts on some of the spoilers, I cover it here in this episode of the J For You podcast, so make sure you go check that out. I don't cover everything, but I cover enough to where you'll get my feelings on some of the spoiler stuff. But I think everything else I can talk about will be spoiler-free. If I do give a spoiler, I'll, of course, give a spoiler warning ahead of time so you can skip ahead, but I probably shouldn't. So, let's jump right into it. God, I haven't done my hair today. You can kinda tell. So, on to the pros list. First thing we have is Tom Holland. Oh my goodness gracious, he was the perfect pick for Spider-Man. Now let's kind of jump into this, dig in a little more. So we kind of saw him a bit in Civil War, and my thoughts were that he's good, but I want to see a little more of him before I make a final decision on anything. And now, having seen him in a Spider-Man movie, I can safely say he's probably my new favorite Spider-Man and Peter Parker. Because before this, I always said, you know, Tobey Maguire is the best Peter Parker, but Andrew Garfield's the best Spider-Man. But now I can safely say Tom Holland's just the best at both, which is what this movie does very well. It has the best first act to any Spider-Man movie, really. Because it's an origin story, but not an origin story of how he got his superpowers. It's an origin story from how he went from this low-level crime fighter to the Spider-Man we know and love, who is kind of fighting the big supervillains. You can really think of it as going from Spider-Kid to Spider-Man. And boy, do they do that high school stuff very well. That's where the movie really shines, in my opinion. It does an amazing job at doing both a Spider-Man movie and a Peter Parker movie. Because again, in that first act, you really see the Spider-Man that I wanted to see. That friendly neighborhood Spider-Man stopping the low-level crime, doing his quippy one-liners, but still being awesome. And the nerdy Peter Parker, who's, you know, not the most popular kid in school and is a nerd and has to deal with all these high school problems. I mean, they do that really well. Anytime there's just that low-level Spider-Man stuff or the high school stuff, they nail it. Better than any other Spider-Man movie. And the Vulture. Michael Keaton. I'm so glad that you did this. I remember the point where it was like, yeah, Michael Keaton's who they want, but he doesn't really want to do it. He wasn't happy with the script or whatever, but then he changed his mind, and I'm just so glad he did. By far the best Marvel villain we've seen in a long time. Like, you really understand his character. He's not the Marvel villain we've been seeing lately who's I'm a bad guy and doing evil things because I am evil. No, I mean, I'm not going to dive too into it, I'll let you see it in the movie, but he's basically just a guy who's doing whatever it takes to survive, and like that quote we see in the trailers where he says, "The world's changing, it's time we change too." I mean, that's really the mantra of his character, is the world's changing. I mean, billionaires are superheroes, guys who were in World War II and were thought to be dead are coming back and are part of a team called the Avengers. You got a giant green monster who the world is rejoicing over. Like, the world is clearly changing, so why can't he? Which I thought was very well done. Everything about the Vulture was great. From the design, which I was a little worried about, but is a billion times better than I thought it would be, to the actual character that was the Vulture. But now that I've gone along singing the praises of Spider-Man Homecoming, it's time that we talk about the bad. And believe me, while I hate to say it, there are definitely some bads. First of all is the tech. Now this was my biggest worry going into the movie, and it turns out I was kinda right. It's not in the first act, but the way they brought it up was great. Still, should it have been there? No. The tech they have was all stuff that's from the comics, which was cool, but it was stuff that he had to earn, which was something we talked about on the podcast, but here, again, I'm not going to dig too much into it. It just felt out of place, and it's like, whoa. The parachute and the talking HUD and the lights, I don't know how I feel about this. Because that's not the Spider-Man I was hoping to see. Going back to what I said earlier, I want to see that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man who's just quippy and he's a kid. He doesn't have much. He has the powers, which give him Spidey sense. He can climb walls. He has the web shooters that he made. Like, that was the Spider-Man I wanted. And then seeing him like, yeah, I'm a sophomore in high school. Hey, you want to see my suit talk to me while I use my 600 different web combinations to take down criminals? It just felt out of place. And to be honest with you, Act 2 was a mess overall. This isn't a spoiler because they technically showed in the trailer. He leaves New York at one point where you see the Washington Monument. And that just didn't feel right to me. I don't know what it is about it. I didn't want him to leave New York. So the second the film kind of moved away from New York, it lost me. It just lost me. It got me back in the third act. But there was a moment, or I shouldn't say a moment, an entire act of the film where I was like, you're doing this, but New York, Spider-Man's home. He's a New York superhero. Washington, D.C., New York. It's a little, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but that entire act right there, from when he left New York until he got back, and even some of after when he got back still felt a little weird to me. It's again, it's all about scale. It's like they just introduced Spider-Man into the universe and are having to play catch-up with him. And it just feels a little rushed. I mean, Marvel didn't have any say in it. If they wanted to, he'd probably be in the first Avengers movie. But since they got him a little late, it's kind of like introducing your biggest IP in a universe that's already been around for a decade. It's like, yep, Spider-Man, the new superhero on the team of the Avengers in a world where they've already fought Ultron, Loki, and, see, Ant-Man's been a thing for a while. S.H.I.E.L.D's gone. Tony Stark had his arc reactor removed. He's made, like, 40-plus suits. Oh yeah, and they're gearing up to fight the biggest MCU villain. Okay, welcome, Spider-Man. Jump right into it. Again, it just feels a little rushed, and there's a little too much of that Marvel-ness all up in it. Like, again, like I was saying, my perfect Spider-Man movie is kind of that more friendly neighborhood thing, which, of course, they had to bring him into the universe, and Tony Stark was in just the right amount, I'd say, but there are other aspects that it's like, yeah, we get it, he's in the MCU. Can we please get back to the Spider-Man story, not the overarching Marvel Cinematic Universe story? I don't know, maybe it's just me again, but there are moments that it felt a little overbearing. And the final fight, again, not to get into any details, it just felt, I don't know if rushed is the word, or if chaotic is the word. It didn't feel like it was much of a fight even. Let's go back to the first Sam Raimi film, an amazing final fight between Green Goblin and Spider-Man, where it feels like it's an actual fight. You feel the stakes. Spider-Man 2, Doc Ock versus Spider-Man. Again, the stakes are super high and it's an awesome fight. Heck, even Spider-Man 3, where you got Venom and Sandman versus Spider-Man and the New Goblin, like that was an amazing fight sequence. Amazing Spider-Man 2 had some pretty good stuff, but we're just gonna move along. Then this movie, the final fight is just wah wah. Like, yeah, again, it's the problem with introducing this huge universe and this, also have a Spider-Man who's still learning to Spider-Man. It just, again, felt a little weird. Now, this is, I'm classifying it as a con, but in the same way it is a pro for the movie. There were a lot of changes from the comic books. All the characters in the films were technically from the comics, they just weren't really. And they were all great characters. It is refreshing considering, you know, the past couple films. Amazing Spider-Man, I guess Parker didn't really have any friends. So we'll talk about the Sam Raimi, where it's like Harry, Flash. It was, you know, the comic book names that the fans know. Here it's like, you know Ned, right? You know Ned. You know, Ned. Yeah, the famous Spider-Man character Ned. No, how about Lisa? Michelle? Like, again, it was very refreshing to get these new characters who, again, I love. Ned, amazing character. It it just felt a little weird that we're getting characters like Ned and Lisa when we're not getting Mary Jane or Harry. Again, it just feels a little weird. The characters, I love them, but I hope you get what I'm saying here. Overall, this was a very good Spider-Man movie. Is it the best? In my honest opinion, no. Is it the worst? Definitely not. Again, definitely a good movie, and as it being part of the MCU, I'll tell you, go see it. I mean, there are still Spider-Man movies I like more, but this one was still definitely good, definitely watchable, and I enjoyed it. Don't let any of my cons negate that. It's still a good movie, and I still recommend it. It just had some problems. So, what do I give Spider-Man Homecoming on my normal 1 to 10 rating system? I have to give it an 8 out of 10 stars. So, how would it do on a date? Say you had your nice homecoming date, you wanted to go see a movie. Would Spider-Man Homecoming hold up? Well, I give Spider-Man Homecoming a 7.5 out of 10 stars of the date night rate. So, thank you guys for watching. Please like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. I'm rushing through my intro because I see the battery light is almost dead. My camera's about to die, so intro might end shortly. But thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video. Please leave in the comment section down below what you thought of the movie. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Stay classy. Later. Woo!